Hello everybody and welcome back to The Lost Planeswalker. You're here with me, Jesse, the Lost Planeswalker, and today we're doing the animated army Precon upgrade guide. I chose to do this video first because honestly I think that this is the most unique deck for sure out of all of them. So let's dive right in and see what those commanders there are with Bellow, Bard of the Brambles, and Wild Seer, Scoring Maw. So Bellow, Bard of the Brambles is 1 red and a green legendary creature, Raccoon Bard. During your turn, each non-equipment artifact and non-aura enchantment you control with mana value 4 or greater is a 4/4 elemental creature in addition to its other types, and has indestructible haste, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. I'm already in love with this guy. He's going to turn your big mana rock things that maybe you're not using, or maybe they're just static abilities on the board, into creatures that have indestructible. You can attack the same turn they come down, and you can draw cards. This is insane. I mean, red and green doesn't always have the best draw engines. Green can get it going pretty good, but this is what I'm talking about here. It's so nice as well. It is 3 mana, so on turn 4, cast one of your 4 or greater non-equipment, non-aura artifacts or enchantments, and you just get to swing in and potentially draw a card like that. Bellow is very cool. Then we have Wild Seer, Scoring Maw, 3 red and a green legendary creature, elemental wolf with trample, and enchantment spells you cast from your hand have Cascade. Yeah, that's also pretty amazing. I could see you building a enchantment deck just based around this, but if I'm going to be honest, we're going with Bellow here. He's just so much stronger, and the deck is really set up for him in my opinion. So, very quickly, I want to look at some of the other new cards in this deck, just to kind of show them off a little bit. We have Alchemist Talent, Brightcap Badger, and Evercoat Ursine. So Alchemist Talent is another class enchantment. We love these. You can basically pay additional mana into them to upgrade their abilities. So first off, for 4 mana, when it enters, create 2 tapped treasure tokens. Then to get it to level 2, you have to pay another 1 in a red, but treasures you control have tap, sack, add 2 mana of any one color, which is pretty amazing there. But then 4 in a red for level 3, whenever you cast a spell, if mana from a treasure was spent to cast it, this class deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to each opponent. One of the really cool ways you might be able to abuse this is if you can cast 2 things in a turn, you're already at level 2, which means you make 2 mana off of your treasures. You can cast both of those with 1 of the mana from the treasure, meaning that you're going to be able to deal damage with both of those spells versus just using the treasure to cast 1 of them. Pretty neat idea, and yeah, this is great. I mean, I could see this going wild in a bunch of treasure decks. It's like $4 right now on Card Kingdom, which just seems really cheap for this ability. I'm sure this card might pick up, or maybe it'll stay around there. We have Blightcap Badger, which is an adventure card, which is very fun. 3 in a green creature, Badger Druid, Fungal Frolic, 2 in a green instant, create 2 1/1 green sapling creature tokens. Then, when you cast it for its regular cost, each fungus and sapling you control has tapped added green mana, and at the beginning of your end step, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token. Hey, this is great. This poops out mana dorks or blockers, and now all of your saplings and fungal creatures can now tap for mana. So I think that this is quite neat. It's definitely going to be a card that goes in any of those Kindred style decks, so very cool to see. And then Evercoat Ursine is 4 in a green creature, elemental bear with trample and hideaway 3, hideaway 3. So when this enters, you look at the top 3 cards, put 1 of them underneath, and whenever you meet the restriction, you can cast those spells. So hideaway is very cool. Getting to look at 6 cards and put 2 of them under here is actually pretty good for 5 mana. Then whenever it deals combat damage to a player, if there are cards exiled with it, you may play 1 of them without paying its mana cost. So as long as you can deal combat damage, which this has trample, you're going to be able to swing in. So next 3 we have here is Prosperous Bandit, Pyre, Wipe Hawk, and Rolling Hamsphere. So Prosperous Bandit, 2 in a red creature, Raccoon Rogue with Offspring 1, meaning for 1 mana you can create a 1/1 token copy of this card. It has first strike, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, create that many tapped treasure tokens. Pretty good ability. I mean, I think you get some real good value off of it, especially if you can buff it up. I don't really know how good it would be in this deck, but making some subtle treasures is probably not too bad. Then we have Pyre, Wipe Hawk, 3 red creature, elemental bird with flying and haste. When it attacks, it gets +X/+0, where X is the greatest mana value among artifacts you control. And whenever you expend 6, which is a new ability that's kind of specific to raccoons, meaning you spent your 6th total mana in a turn, gain control of up to one target artifact for as long as you control Pyre Wipe Hawk. This is great. This is so good. What I love about this is that if this is the first spell you cast this turn, if you can cast one more thing, the turn it comes down, you can steal something. It's just so cool. Stealing everybody's soul rings or their best artifacts is just really devastating. And then Rolling Hamsphere, 7 mana, artifact vehicle. It gets +1/+1 for each hamster you control. Whenever it attacks, create 3 1/1 red hamster creature tokens, and it deals X damage to any target where X is the number of hamsters you control. So one of the interesting things I'm going to talk about when I get into the deck building is it doesn't care about vehicles like it does non-equipment and non-auras. Vehicles are fine. So when this comes in and you have Bellow out, it's already a 4/4. Now it is indestructible. Haste, it's going to get +1/+1 for all the hamsters, and you still get to deal damage. This is a very cool way, I think, to build around this deck, and that's the way I did it. But let's look through the last 2 cards real quick. Look at the cards I decided to cut, and then talk about the new ones. We have Thickest in the Thicket and Trail Tracker Scout. So Thickest in the Thicket is 3 green enchantment. When it enters, put it X +1/+1 counters on target creature, where X is that creature's power. Then at the beginning of your end step, draw 2 cards if you control the creature with the greatest power or tied for the greatest power. So this is pretty neat because it essentially doubles the number of counters, but actually doubles the power of a creature by also putting counters on it, I guess. So this is pretty good. I think that would be a little too expensive if that's all it did, but drawing you 2 cards and then perpetually drawing you cards as long as you can maintain that creature or creature with the largest power, yeah, I can definitely see this being really good. And it's a perfect hit for a commander because once it enters, it doesn't tap, so as long as we can swing in and attack with it, we're getting some more value. Then we have Trail Tracker Scout. 1 in a green creature, Raccoon Scout, with tap to add 1 mana of any color, and then when you expend 8, return up to 1 target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. I mean, green, ramping, you're probably going to get to spend 8 mana much quicker than you think, especially if you've got some mana dorks out there. It would be incredible to get this out and just keep returning things to your hand so early in the game. I think that this is going to be a staple card. It's going for like $2. I'd pick up a copy at that price right now. You know, who knows where this will end up, but that just seems really good and really good value, especially if you're going to be dumping big dinos or big creatures or lots of stuff onto the board every turn. So with that out of the way, I want to talk about some cards I think you should cut from this deck, which we have Bootlegger Stash, Brightcap Badger, Burnished Heart, Decimate, Forest, Greater Good, Gormaw, All-Devouring, Mountain, Spine of Isha, and Tender Shroot Dryad. So I'm going to run through real quickly why I think you should cut some of these cards. Bootlegger Stash makes treasures. We're not super worried about that. Yeah, we got some stuff that cares about that, but that's not really our main focus in this deck. Blightcap Badger, we really aren't focusing on Sapperlings, so I don't see the point. Burnished Heart, yeah, it's good ramp, but we already have access to the best ramp in the game. In addition, this isn't 4 mana, so we clearly can't abuse it there. Decimate's okay, but we can't cast this unless we can target one of everything, and if one of those things is our own, we're losing value there. Forest, I think there's just too many lands in this deck with how quick you're going to ramp. The Greater Good is a really interesting card, but most of the power in this deck are your 4 power creatures. There aren't too many things that are that much bigger, so really you're just going to draw 4, keep one of them and discard 3, so I just don't see the value there. Gormath, All-Devouring, yeah, he's okay. I get it, your creatures have indestructible, you're going to be able to, go in and kill him. That might be a reason to kill him, but if you can't do that the turn you play him, your opponents can get a ton of value off of him, so I don't know about that. Again, we're going to get rid of a mountain because there was 38 lands, and I think that this deck could very easily be 36. Spine of Ishtar, yes, it's great because it destroys permanents, but there's not really any ways we can kind of loop this over and over again. We're going to have indestructible on it, so it's not even like if somebody goes to block, we get to put this back in our hand and cast it again. It's kind of just stuck there on the battlefield, so we're going to get some value, but not 7 mana worth. And then Tender Shroot Dryad, again, not a Sapperling deck. Yeah, I could see this being pretty good, having a lot of little blockers around, but I don't think it's worth including. So now I'm very quickly going to go through the cards I think you should add to this deck, but I just want to say before we get there, please consider subscribing to my channel. It would mean the world to me. Now let's dive right in with Gauntlet of Power, Lava Brink Floodgates, and Luxurious Locomotive. Gauntlet of Power here is quite cool. It's going to ramp us. We're going to get some of our creatures bigger, I just think all around, it's a pretty cool card and definitely worth including. Lava Brink Floodgates. Again, this is a really cool mana rock that says also at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player puts a Doom counter on Lava Brink Floodgate or removes the Doom counter from it. If it has 3 or more counters on it, sack it. When you do, it deals 6 damage to each creature. Now, luckily, all of your artifacts and whatnot have indestructible. They're not going to die if this would take up to 3. So it's a very cool way where you can kind of wrath the board and then have a bunch of stuff on the board to attack with still. And Luxurious Locomotive, 5 mana artifact vehicle. When it attacks, create a treasure token for each creature that crewed it this turn. Notably, just crew it with your other artifacts. If you don't want to swing through, make a ton of treasure. If maybe you just can't get through or you want to get a ton of treasure versus drawing a bunch of cards. Seems pretty good to me. Next is the Nautiloid ship, Nyx Lotus and Scepter of Eternal Glory. Nautiloid ship is going to exile player's graveyard when it enters, and then when it deals combat damage, you can put a creature that's exiled with it on the battlefield. Now, notably here, it doesn't say that when these become creatures, they lose their other abilities. So just like the Luxurious Locomotive, this has flying, so you're probably going to get through. Indestructible Haste, yeah, this is sick. It's only 4 mana. This would be one of the first spells I would want to get if a player had a bunch of stuff in the bin. Obviously, this gets better later in the game you get. Then we have Nyx Lotus. Nyx Lotus, again, very good card. We can add a ton of mana with our Devotion, but maybe if we don't need mana and we just need cards, we can swing in with it, get some additional value there. And similarly, Scepter of Eternal Glory. We can tap it to add 1 mana of any color, or add 3 mana of any one color, activate only if you control 3 or more lands with the same name. Depending on how you build the land base, whether you're buying this Precon and just upgrading it, or you're building this from scratch, yeah, you could probably cut some of these other lands, include more basics, and you'd be good. In addition, you have a ton of ramp spells, so you're probably going to have 3 of one basic kind anyways. Next, we have Sky Sovereign Council Flagship, the Golden Throne, and the Thunderhawk Gunship. Sovereigner Counselor's Flagship, one of my favorite vehicles. It's going to enter. You're going to deal some damage. Whenever it attacks, you deal damage. So you're getting value just off of it attacking. It's going to have indestructible. I think that this is a great card. The Golden Throne, 4 mana legendary artifact, one of my favorite mana rocks ever because it has end game protection with if you die, you just go to 1 instead. And then you can sack a creature to add 3 mana of any combination of colors. This is not super important in this deck. I think you're going to be pretty safe here, but there are some decks where that is just key. And maybe you need something like making an insane amount of red or an insane amount of green. There are some spells in here that have 3, 4 individual color pips in their casting cost. So definitely worth it. And then we have Thunderhawk Gunship. Flying, when it enters, make 2 white Astartes warrior creature tokens with vigilance. And when it attacks, attacking creatures you control gain flying until end of turn. Yeah, it just gives everything evasion. This is going to have indestructible. This is what we like. I mean, this is such a unique commander that you can build a very cool vehicle deck with it and be very successful. And then lastly, possibly the best vehicle out of all of them, we have the Weatherlight. 4 generic legendary artifact vehicle. It is flying, and when it deals combat damage to a player, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a historic card from among them, put it in your hand, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Guess what? That's what we want to cast. Whether it's legendaries, artifacts, sagas, whatever, that's all we're trying to get from this deck. So the Weatherlight is a perfect include, and I really don't see why they couldn't have included this cards themselves. It is so good. It's not that expensive. It's just a perfect reprint for this deck. And with that, I would just like to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my analysis of this deck, and tell me what you thought. Did I have a good idea there going all vehicles and mana rocks? What did you think? Was there some other way that this deck could go that you really think it benefits from? Do you think the co-commander is actually more powerful and you would build around that? You know, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to see it. In addition, if you could please leave a like, share this video with a friend, and subscribe, that would mean the world to me. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Now today's Scryfall card of the day is Carrion Beetles. It's all fun and games until someone loses an eye. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you later, Planeswalkers.